It's California Edition. I'm Brad Pomerance. Sergio Diaz is joining us today. He is the chief of police in the city of Riverside. And so I want to speak with you about an issue that's been on the minds of many Californians, and that is school safety, especially in the wake of what happened a few months back at UC Santa Barbara. We have UCR in this community, and I was reading some statistics. They're really daunting. In the first 6 months of this year, there have been over 30 firearm attacks in the school environment. That's daunting. That is daunting.
Yeah, that is very sad to see, and you can only conjecture about why that would be the case. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's widespread coverage of those things, so there's a built-in motivation for people who are seeking attention to try to outdo the last one.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I was looking, and a lot of statistics, but bear with me. In the 18 months before Sandy Hook, which was the incident in Connecticut, there were 17 deaths in 17 school incidents. In the 18 months after Sandy Hook, 41 deaths, 62 school incidents. And that's during a time where deaths for violent gun incidents were flat. So something's happening like you described, sir, where there seems to be this attention-grabbing desire of these madmen to, be on the front page of whatever paper they're in.
Yeah, and I'm no psychologist, but it stands to reason, and from our experience in dealing with certain folks, once something gets that much coverage on the news, in the internet, and so forth, for some people with illness, that normalizes the act.
Really?
Maybe something that previously would have been completely unthinkable, now it's not so unthinkable. Somebody went through with it.
And so they're copycats.
They're copycats, and again, people trying to outdo each other. There are actual websites where people talk to each other about this and compare notes, and some of the ones that have participated have a history of saying, I'm going to top this guy or top that guy, or this is going to be worse.
I have to think that after the incident at UCSB, you and your department really doubled down on trying to figure out what would we do if this was UCR. Because I think about Isla Vista, I think about, which is in Santa Barbara outside of the campus, I think about the beautiful community of UC Riverside. If you haven't been, I mean, the area surrounding UCR is really quite bucolic. And so what are you doing, to the extent you can tell us, to try to get your handle on this? Because it's not easy. I mean, what 10 active scenes at UCSB? The post investigation is huge, but that's not really the point. Is to prevent these things. I'll point out that the city of Riverside not only has UCR, we're a college town. We have two private Christian universities, La Sierra and CBU, plus our city college. So there's about 50,000 students in Riverside, and this really is a college town. But it did cause us to look again at what our protocols are, and it's not just limited, of course, to college campuses. Of course.
These things are very, I don't know about very, but more common than you would expect.
And think about
threat assessments in the other schools, in the high schools and the junior highs especially.
Right.
So,
well, Sandy Hook, that was an elementary school.
Yeah, and the main lessons we've learned over the years, and the U.S. government has studied this, the Secret Service and the Department of Education, is it's very important that every player on a school campus knows to report things that are that concern them. In every case of school shootings, there were people who suspected, they thought something was wrong, and then they dealt with their own concerns by denying their own better judgment. So it's very important that when people have a concern that they report it, because in every case where it's been reported and there's been an intervention, there is no shooting. Something is stopped, and people don't come back to it. It's important to intervene once at least.
I want to do what some would call Monday morning quarterbacking, and forgive me because I know how hard your job is. And in a lot of ways, I think that we are expecting too much of our officers in terms of being not only safety officials, but psychologists. When we send out officers to do what's known as a welfare check, look, you didn't get your PhD in psychology, you're not a doctor of psychiatry, but be that as it may, that's the system that we have today. We look at what happened in Santa Barbara. I think there is one area where even the Santa Barbara sheriff has somehow suggested that maybe they did something, or they should have done something that they didn't. And that is when they engaged in a welfare check on the perpetrator a few months earlier. They didn't do what's often standard, which is a quick background check on the person to see if they were a legal owner of guns. This individual was a legal owner of guns. He had 3 guns that were legally owned by him. And I have to think, and correct me if I'm wrong, if the officers had known that, maybe they would have engaged in a different manner when they conducted the welfare check. Is that fair?
Brad, it's fair to wonder about it. We don't know. A lot is going to depend on how the person presents. So certainly it would have been good information to have, and it's something that we typically do when we're doing a threat assessment or an evaluation of someone's mental state that might require a commitment for observation. We look at that issue of gun ownership. But it's not just that issue, though. You want to know what else is going on in the person's life. So ideally, for example, if the person were going through a divorce, had lost a job, had been foreclosed on, had all of these other stressors, that would add to the picture. And nowadays, a review of social media activity is very important. I would say maybe more important than gun ownership. I think in the case of the Isla Vista case, this young man had manifested some really hateful
No, he had. It got more hateful after the welfare check, to be fair. It got more hateful after the welfare check. And in fact, as you surely know, his parents, his divorced parents, were driving up together when they saw something on the web that suggested that he was becoming unglued, and while they were driving up is when the incident occurred. So, you know, this wasn't a case where you had parents that had checked out. This was a case where you had parents that were actively involved. There's also a law that has come under increasing review, and that's known as Laura's Law, which would allow more active, I guess you could say, 5150 applications. Is that a fair way to say it?
Well, my understanding is it's not exactly about 5150. 5150 is the part of the California law that allows a person to be committed.
Involuntary,
committed involuntarily for observation. But Laura's Law, as I understand it, would allow doctors to be more directive in making sure that people got the treatment that they need.
It's court-mandated mental health. So that being said, sir, we know Riverside County is not a county that has adopted Laura's Law yet. Just a couple have adopted it. You know, before this incident in Isla Vista, I think it was just Nevada County where Laura, from where she resided before her murder. I think Orange County recently may have adopted. A couple counties are looking at it. Should Riverside County be looking at Laura's Law?
Look, that's a policy issue that our legislators are going to have to deal with.
It's a county issue. It's not a law enforcement issue.
Well, and it has law enforcement ramifications, but there are pros and cons, and there's the balance of, you know, in our society, in our country, we've always been very respectful of people's privacy and frankly, people's right to be mentally ill as long as it doesn't represent a threat to someone else. So, so there's that balance, but it would provide another tool, hopefully.
Have you spoken with your supervisors? Is it appropriate for you to speak with supervisors about this?
If they ask, but I'm sure that they would, you know, they have a very capable sheriff in the county.
That's true. But you would, but the city would be implicated as well if Laura's Law was passed, correct?
Yes, because the mental health care is a county, is in the county providence.
Okay. His name is Sergio Diaz. He is the chief of police for the city of Riverside. My name is Brad Pomerance. It's California Edition.